Today my guest is Phil Winstanley. Phil, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
And you're not from here, are you?
No, I'm from the UK. I'm from England, near Manchester.
What do you do there?
I'm an independent software developer. I work in .NET, focus on ASP.NET. That's primary focus.
Okay.
But I'll dip my toes into the water of pretty much any technology, should it fit the right needs.
Right. And we were talking earlier. You have you've invented something. Sort of a, I don't want to. Is it a methodology?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's kind of an anti-methodology, if anything.
It's an anti-methodology. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
So
It has a name.
lots of methodologies. Start at the beginning of software development and end when the product ships. And no one puts any focus on what happens after that point. Software doesn't end once it's shipped. There is a lifetime that software has.
Not for me.
Well, if you're one of the lucky people that doesn't have to maintain your own software, then that's brilliant.
Yeah, so the people that actually use my software, they have to deal with it.
They have to deal with it. And the developers that come behind you to clean up the mess
The
that you've
support
left.
people, yeah.
Yeah. So something that happens in lots of software once it's shipped are exceptions. So I started working along something along the lines of exception-driven development that's derived after software is shipped, whereby you can infer from the exceptions software's throwing how badly it's performing, whether or not it's pertaining to what the users need,
Okay.
and working in those areas.
Okay. So this is you say it's not a methodology, or it's a framework,
No, it's more of a mindset than anything else.
Okay.
It's something that as a developer that you should be mindful of as you build your software,
Right.
and also after you ship it, be mindful of checking whether or not these things are occurring. So it's important to catch exceptions when they're happening, so that you know that they're happening. It's important to be able to analyse them and pull through the relevant information around those exceptions.
Okay.
And it's important to be able to fix them and to choose which ones you're going to fix. And then after that fact, it's important to be able to test them and make sure you have fixed them. That's more or less what it comes down to. It's that process and about how you go into that. Lots of .NET developers don't really catch exceptions in what I think is the correct way. They let their problems be wrapped in try-catches, so that they'll look for problematic code, wrap it in a try-catch, and then they may handle it, they may swallow it, they may just log it somewhere. It's important, I think, to actually understand what matters in your applications, which exceptions are bad,
Okay.
which ones you can ignore, which ones aren't your problem, because there are many
Give
of
me a
those
real
as
quick
well.
example of each of those three. So what's
Okay.
one that I can ignore?
What you could ignore, let's say you build an application that talks to Twitter, and in that application you're aware that Twitter fails on a regular basis. You often can't get data from Twitter because they go offline. In that kind of instance, you can handle that exception and ignore it and have knowledge of it failing. You don't have to fix that exception. It's not a null reference exception. It's not a division by zero exception. It's not an exception caused by data that you're manually dealing with,
Right.
or by user
And you may
environments.
try it again.
And you can try it
with
again.
Exactly the same parameters, and they succeed.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So it's an exception that's outside of your control.
Okay.
It's caused by an external party, database, web service, external feeds of some kind, any black box. in
And it's not
essence.
really harmful. No puppies are killed when that happens.
Depends entirely what it is. If you're pulling out exchange rate data
I
for a
was
stock
thinking the
exchange
Twitter
system,
example.
yeah,
Twitter,
the
to my
Twitter
knowledge,
example
has
is
not
different.
killed any puppies.
No, generally not. No,
It's killed some whales.
Whales, there's definitely failing of whales involved in that. So that's an example of an exception that causes problems
Okay.
that you don't have to worry about particularly.
Okay.
Other ones might be you've got data coming back from a database, and that data may not be in the format you expect it in, and it's causing conversion errors. So you might
Okay.
be
What's a
calling
more
back-
serious problem?
It's a more serious problem because the data's wrong,
Right.
or the application is wrong in handling the data. Now you've got to determine which one of those two things it is.
Right.
Is the underlying data at fault, or is your application at fault in dealing with that? Basically, when systems go live, real things happen, things that don't happen when you're building the applications. They're not tested in the same way. The best testers out there are your users,
Right.
because they will press those buttons in the order you never expected them to. They will press back on the browser and go forward and get involved in all kinds of horrible hacky things that you as a web
Right.
developer can't code for. So it's without those scenarios, you don't really know what can fail in your applications, which is why it's important to, after you ship, also monitor the applications and fix those failure points as they occur.
Okay. And so what's your approach for doing that?
So the approach is quite simply making sure you're logging every exception as it happens with global error handlers, be it in your web forms application or your Windows service or your ASP.NET application. You need to be able to catch your exceptions globally. In ASP.NET you've got a wonderful application level error handler. In Windows applications, there are a few events that you can hook up to on the application domain and on the application to pull those exceptions through.
Mm-hmm.
Log them somewhere, to disk, to a database, to a cloud service. There are a few of those around, of which we build one. It's called Exceptioneer, and that covers all the different .NET stack systems, so ASP.NET right through to Silverlight, through to just console applications.
So this is a product that plugs into a .NET application.
Yeah, so you take our DLL.
And takes care of logging to the cloud somewhere.
So we take care of the hard bit. We look at all your entire environment once we're in there. We pull through all the relevant data that's pertinent to you to recreate that exception in the future. Because that's another thing a lot of people don't do is they'll log the error message and the source of it, but they won't log the variables around that. What form data was posted up to the server? What was the stored procedure you were calling? What information around the session might there be that's pertinent? Which server was it on? Which machine? Which user was logged in? All these things actually matter.
What about environmental things like how much memory is on the machine? How much disk space is there? Those
so they can be. We don't actively log those, but you can also add your own data into what we log. And the same goes for any logging you're doing. It depends on what you're doing entirely as to what kind of problems you can hit. And different types of applications will run into different types of things. So ASP.NET applications suffer very different problems from Windows client applications or Windows services. The types of errors that you're likely to get are caused in different ways. So it's important to collect different things for different environments. When we even do, we've got a monotouch assembly, so you can drop it into Mono on your iPhone application in Mono, and we'll log the exceptions that happen.
So now Mono works on iPhone.
Now that it works, yeah. I mean, whether it's licensed or legal or not, it's a different matter, but we technically support it. But yeah, exception management, it's not so much about the technical side, it's about the process that you put around that.
Okay, the process is to look at the list. They say process like a bread.
Yeah.
It's about catching the exceptions everywhere, catching the global exceptions,
Absolutely.
logging the pertinent information, persisting that. But we're not done there. We need to look at that.
You need to analyze it. You need to know.
How do we do that?
So there's a few criteria. I mean, number one, how often is it happening? Is it something you need to care about? Is it something that happens once in a blue moon or you can ignore? Is it not that serious? It's fine. Just ignore that. If it's happening a lot, you might want to do it more importantly. Two, who's it happening to? If your boss is seeing it, you might want to go and fix that. If it's your biggest customer, if it's if it's one that really matters to you, you might want to fix it. If it's happening because Google is indexing your site and they're seeing some errors and you don't really care, you don't have to fix it. You know, it's that kind of scale of who is it that's actually seeing the error.
So set a priority based on where it's occurring.
Yeah.
And then we need to analyze the data somehow.
Yeah. So, but I mean, there are more criteria that you play with as well. Like, is it an error that you can fix,
right,
or is it a third-party error? For example, the Twitter example before.
Right.
You can't fix that. All you can do is handle it in different ways. So you can look at whether you handle it or whether you fix it. That's another criteria. Another one might be who wrote the code. Did you write it? In which case,
it's somebody. It's an environmental thing.
Yeah, it might be your problem.
If I wrote the code, it's an environmental
That's never
issue.
your problem, of course. Yes.
If somebody else wrote the code, it's probably a software.
The thing is, if your co-worker wrote it, they're probably much more efficient at fixing it than you are. So you shouldn't necessarily be the one to fix that. Or if you've got
assign to the people that have more domain knowledge about that code.
Yeah, or if you're using a third-party component, have you got a support contract with them? Can you offload this exception entirely out of your scope to someone else to fix? So those are other places that you can do that. And once you've been able to analyse, should you fix it or should you handle it, which those questions help you answer, you can then determine, of your list of 15 errors, exceptions that you've got happening in your application, which ones you focus on, which ones you ignore.
Okay. Anything else?
Not really. I mean, other than testing it to make sure you've actually fixed the errors gone away, which is something a lot of people don't bother to do.
Hopefully that's before you deploy it.
Generally, that's a good place to do it. But it's important to then continue to monitor for that exception occurring. Don't assume it's gone away.
Right.
Continue to check those logs and monitor for them.
And your product, tell me that again.
It's called Exceptioneer. It's
and where can I learn about that?
exceptioneer.com.
Okay.
It's exceptioneer.com.
Okay.
And it handles, like I said, the entire .NET stack is covered with that.
Do you have an online presence?
I do. You can find me on Twitter as Plip, P-L-I-P, and same on weblogs.asp.net, Plip, again on there. And that's where I tend to rant about all sorts of things in software and all the things that I find as an independent consultant when I go in, because maintenance is what I focus on.
Okay.
So I see some really bad code out there, and I like to talk about it and tell others about it. Not always.
All right. Phil, thanks very much.
Thank
I appreciate your time.
No worries. found lots of friends in technology. In fact, some of my only friends are technology